Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between to the Movie Squib channel. I am your host, Charlie, and let me ask you a simple question. Are you sick of all the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny reviews? I know I am. There's got to be about 10,000 reviews on YouTube alone. I swear, if that movie makes any money, it's because of the content creators who went to see the movie just to shit on it. It's unbelievable. That's all I see. It's either a video on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, or it's a video on why Disney is going bankrupt. I get it. Disney has mishandled a ton of franchises that we both know and love, but you know what? I am just sick of all the videos about it. I've had enough of Dial of Destiny, I've had enough about The Flash, I just can't do it anymore. So, instead of talking about those movies just to ride that algorithm and get those clicks, let's talk about Maniac Cop. Here's the thing about Maniac Cop. Originally, I was reading the cast list for Maniac Cop Part 2, which I hear is the better of the three films. So, I saw that Bruce Campbell was in it, and I was like, ooh, Bruce Campbell. I gotta get me some of that because I'm a huge fan of Bruce Campbell. I've never seen the Maniac Cop trilogy, and it's a 1980s horror thriller movie, so this is right up my alley. So, Maniac Cop Part 1 is on Amazon Prime, and I'm like, okay, I gotta watch Part 1 before I watch Part 2, just in case. And, to my surprise, Bruce Campbell is also in Maniac Cop Part 1. So when I saw that, I was like, yes! The only thing that sucks is that I wanted to do a reaction video on Part 2, and I should have done a reaction video of Part 1, but that's okay. We'll do a reaction video on Maniac Cop 2, and you can see my facial expressions when I watch the film, especially since it's the better of the two, or from what I hear, it's the better of the two films, so that's okay. For now, let's talk about Maniac Cop Part 1 and what I absolutely love about this film. Okay, let's start off with the cast first. Now, there's not a big cast for Maniac Cop. We've got Bruce Campbell, he's your most well-known actor. We've got Tom Atkins, who actually I thought was the lead protagonist for this film, but it's actually not. It's actually Bruce Campbell. But here's the thing, Bruce Campbell doesn't get introduced until like 15 minutes into the film. Now, he's got a great introduction in the film. They don't show his face for about a minute, almost a minute and a half, and then finally you get to see him. Bruce Campbell, we know and love him, but Scott Atkins is another notable lead. If you're a boomer like me, if you're a youngin', you're probably not going to know who Scott Atkins is, but if you're a boomer, you'll recognize that face and you'll say, I've seen that guy before, I've seen that guy in movies. The only other actor is Maniac Cop himself, and that is played by Robert Z'Dar. Now, I got introduced to that beautiful jaw in the movie Tango and Cash. If you haven't seen the movie Tango and Cash, first of all, shame on you. Shame on you for not watching that film. Second of all, get your ass up and go find out where that film is located. Or I'll tell you in the comments section where you can find that film. But Tango and Cash, Sylvester Stallone, Kurt Russell, action, muscle, babes. I got introduced to both Robert Z'Dar in that film. He's one of the prison inmates. And the guy who looks like a rat face, he's in The Fifth Element. His name is, oh gosh, I can't remember his name at the moment. And I don't want to touch my computer because I touched my computer before and the microphone went crazy. So I'll just post his name at the bottom, but you'll know him instantly from Fifth Element, and he's been in a ton of other 80s movies, but I know him as Ratface Man. So Robert Z'Dar, he plays the villain in this film. You don't get many shots of his face. They do show a little bit of it, and he's definitely recognizable. He's got this jawline that you could probably break through a diamond with it. But he did a great job as the villain of this film. He doesn't have any lines, but just his presence, his figure, it's just a Hulk. He's just a massive man, so he really sold the role of Maniac Cop in this film, and he didn't really have to do much. Let's go ahead and get into the movie itself. So, Maniac Cop actually starts off with a woman getting mugged by two men, and she actually fights them off. She runs away. She sees a cop in the park, and she runs up to him, and unfortunately, it's Maniac Cop, and he just picks her up and snaps her neck like a twig. Now, the other two criminals, they see what happens, and they end up getting arrested, but they're screaming like, oh, it wasn't us, it was a cop, we saw the uniform and everything. Now, of course, the commissioner and the mayor and all the other policemen, they're not even wanting to acknowledge that this could be a police officer, but not Mr. Atkins. Detective Atkins, he says to himself, well, maybe it is a cop. So he starts investigating, and he does determine that it is a police officer. And so he goes with this information to the commissioner and to the mayor, and they're just like, no, don't release this information. Let's keep this under wraps for now. The detective, he's not having this. He's like, no. We can't put the public's life in danger because we don't want to admit that the serial killer may be a police officer. Detective Atkins decides to go around their back. He gives the information to a reporter, and now it's all over the newspapers. Unfortunately, a police officer was killed because a civilian got paranoid. She thought that the cop that was coming up to him was a maniac cop, and she just shoots him in the head, and it is just brutal. So I can understand that, and yeah, I can see why it would have caused issues, but I'm with Detective Atkins on this. The public needs to know, regardless of the fact that the public may overreact, they're entitled to the truth. Now we're cutting over to Bruce Campbell finally. Now Bruce Campbell is a beat cop, and he's having some marital troubles. His wife is telling him don't go, and he's like, hey man, I'm a cop, I gotta go out there, I gotta protect the city. So he goes out there. Now, his wife ends up getting this ominous call from a female that says like, oh, your husband is the maniac cop and he's going out there to kill right now. And she gets all suspicious and crazy, so she grabs a gun and she goes out there and she follows her husband, only to find out that Bruce Campbell has been cheating with another fellow police officer. Now, he gets caught, he's embarrassed about the whole thing. He's actually kind of calm. You know, these movies, I always expect the man to immediately blame the woman, and he kind of does in the beginning. He says like, oh, why did you follow me? But then he admits to his infidelity, and he says, look, I didn't want you to find out this way, but, you know, I'm seeing this person. She runs away. She's all upset, rightfully so. And unfortunately, Maniac Cop catches her outside and kills her. This was actually all done to basically pin the blame on Bruce Campbell, and it works, of course, because he admits to the police that him and his wife were having troubles and that he was there at that motel, and he doesn't want to give away the name of the female police officer who he was having the affair with because he wants to protect her name, but because of that, he's put in jail, he's in a lot of trouble. Now, Detective Atkins, he knows that this guy isn't Maniac Cop. He just doesn't fit the profile. It doesn't make any sense. So Atkins continues his investigation, and he does finally come across that woman who placed the call to Bruce Campbell's wife and made her suspicious of her husband, and that is a police officer who was actually the fiancé of Maniac Cop. So let's get the background story on Maniac Cop. So Maniac Cop was actually a decorated police officer. He was a no-nonsense cop. He was a shoot first, ask questions later type of guy, but throughout the police force, he was known as a hero who would go after the bad guys and wouldn't take shit from them. Unfortunately, he was trigger happy and he ended up getting in a lot of trouble. He got put in jail. He blames the mayor and the commissioner for his jail time. Now, here's the interesting thing. He actually refused to be in solitary confinement. He insisted to be put into gen population, and as a result, he ends up getting attacked in the bathroom and he ends up getting killed, or so they think. What happens is the inmates, they cut his face all up, they cut him all up. He's presumed dead, but when he's with the medical examiner actually finds a pulse. It's weak, but he does find a pulse. He figures that this guy's just gonna be a vegetable, he's got brain damage, so he releases Maniac Cop to his fiancée, and he tells everybody that Robert Zadar died in prison. Now, Atkins was ready to find all of this out. He was ready to go to the jail and question the medical examiner, But before he can do that, Maniac Cop heads over to the police station and he ends up killing Atkins and he kills a bunch of other cops. All these cops end up blaming Bruce Campbell, and Bruce Campbell ends up escaping with Lady Cop. They go to the prison, they find out all this stuff about who Maniac Cop is. Now, I almost failed to mention this, but the fiance who was engaged to Maniac Cop, she originally thought that Maniac Cop was going to kill nothing but bad guys, and they did have this elaborate plan in place to get revenge on the commissioner and the mayor who got him put away behind bars. But of course it goes completely off the rails because Maniac Cop just kills anybody in his path. She tries to steer him in the right direction, but by the middle of the movie she understands that he's just gone completely off the rails and even she's not safe. And just as she's saying that, she ends up getting obliterated as well. So now Maniac Cop is just all on his own. He's just a ruthless killer. The film originally doesn't delve into the supernatural parts of Maniac Cop. Lady Cop, who was having the affair with Bruce Campbell, she even mentions that she shot him twice in the head and nothing happened. So there is a supernatural element to it, but they don't really delve deep into that. They just kind of brush it off to the side. Of course, you know by the end of the movie that it is supernatural in nature, and I'll explain a bit more about that, but let's go ahead and keep moving. So Bruce Campbell and Lady Cop, they go back to the police station and they decide to come up with this plan to try to trap the Maniac Cop. Nothing goes according to plan. Maniac Cop ends up killing a bunch of people, and the police still think that Bruce Campbell is the killer. So they see him on the street, they put him in a paddy wagon, then Maniac Cop comes out of nowhere. He takes over the paddy wagon and he drives it with Bruce Campbell in the back. And after a cool little chase scene, he ends up getting a pole right through his chest, and then the truck ends up crashing into the bay. Of course, when they pull the truck up, you don't see the body in there, and then you see a hand coming out of the water. So it's obviously implied that Robert Zadar did survive, so there's your sequel bait right there. But I really enjoyed this movie. It was just a fun 80s thriller/horror action movie. I can see why it didn't get good reviews at the time. The dialogue in this film it goes from cliche to cringe. The dialogue is definitely stiff. Really funny, but stiff. But I don't know, I find that's part of the appeal of this film is the cliche/cringe dialogue. It's something that kind of just makes it what it is. Of course, Bruce Campbell is in fine form. It's not that he's wacky like the Evil Dead movies. He's actually a bit more serious in this, but he's just an all-around good actor. He's just got a ton of charisma, so you end up rooting for him in the film. Personally, I think that Lady Cop who he had the affair with is kind of ugly. Like, she's got this face that's like, ugh, like, and I don't know, she didn't look that good to me, but it's the 80s. It was a different era. I'll have to watch a couple more Robert Zadar movies and get into his life and times because I never really paid attention when I was younger. I was more into the mainstream movies. I didn't watch a lot of the B movies or a lot of the schlock movies, although there are some that I've watched and I didn't remember up until now, but usually I just was in the mainstream movies. But yeah, Maniac Cop, it's a great film. I'm really curious to see how much better the second one is than the first one and why it is better than the second one. I can't wait to do a video on that. As of July of 2023, it's on Amazon Prime. Now, I'm located in the US region, so it's US region, but it is on Amazon Prime. Maniac Cop 2 is also on Amazon Prime. It's part of that third-party app Freevee, so I believe that there's going to be commercials for Maniac Cop 2, but it's still probably going to be unedited and uncut, so as long as it's unedited, as long as it's uncut, I can stand the commercials. It's not a big deal. As far as Maniac Cop 3 goes, I'll have to find out where that is. It's not that I'm in a rush to watch that one because I heard that that's the weakest of the three, but I guess I'm going to have to get around to it just to close off the trilogy. But Maniac Cop 2, I'm really excited to watch it. If you're a huge fan of Bruce Campbell, he's in it, so come on, get on that. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for listening. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit the notifications. I've got a ton more movies that don't have to do with Disney, that don't have to do with Marvel or DC. Time is the one thing that you can never get back. So why waste it on horrible movies? Why waste it on those cookie cutter movies that you know are not going to be that good? Forget that. Let's talk about good movies. Let's talk about Maniac Cop. Let's talk about Maniac Cop 2. Oh, and next week, I've got a video on Class of Nukem High. Oh my God. Let me tell you something. That movie broke my brain. And I'm going to do a rewatch of it with a reaction because I'm certain that it's still going to break my head. It's still going to break my head because it is just wacky. Anyway, thank you so much again for listening, and you all have a lovely evening. Take care.